He had a name, but it wasn't his. He had an address, but it didn't exist. He walked the streets, caught on camera, seen by dozens, yet he remains a ghost. In June 2009, a man calling himself Peter Bergmann arrived in the unassuming coastal town of Sligo, Ireland. 4 days later, he was dead on a beach, leaving behind a meticulously crafted void where a life should have been. He sought absolute anonymity, but in doing so etched himself into history as one of Ireland's most baffling and persistent unsolved mysteries. The story, as far as anyone can piece it together, begins not in Sligo, but some 70 miles northeast in the bustling Ulster bus depot in Derry, Northern Ireland. It's Friday, June 12, 2009, mid-afternoon, between 2:30 and 4 p.m. A man, described later as being in his late 50s or early 60s, roughly 5 feet 10 inches tall, slender, with short grey hair, blue eyes and a noticeable tan, steps onto a bus bound for Sligo. He carries 2 bags, a black shoulder bag slung across him and a standard nondescript carry-on luggage bag. He speaks English, but with a heavy accent one witnesses would later pinpoint as distinctly Germanic, possibly Austrian. How he arrived in Derry, or from where, remains the first of many blanks in his narrative. His choice of entry into the Republic via Northern Ireland is itself curious, perhaps a subtle initial step in obscuring his trail, utilising potentially less formal border scrutiny than a direct flight from mainland Europe might entail. Around 6:30 p.m, the bus pulls into Sligo station. The evening is descending on the town nestled beside the Garavogue River. The man hails a taxi. His destination, the Sligo City Hotel, a modern establishment in the town centre. At the check-in desk, he presents himself as Peter Bergmann. For his address, he offers Einstedesen 15 4472, Vienna, Austria. He pays cash up front for a 3-night stay. The name would prove to be an alias, the address utterly fictitious. Gardaí, Irish police, would later discover the street name was misspelled or simply fabricated. The postcode 4472 is unassigned in Austria, and Viennese postcodes predominantly start with a 1. Some digging suggested it might correspond to a vacant lot, a dead end, literally and figuratively. The ghost had checked in. What followed over the next 3 days was a quiet, methodical ritual of self-erasure, performed in plain sight, yet designed to leave no trace. Saturday, June 13th, began with a specific errand. At 10:49 a.m, hotel CCTV captures Bergmann walking purposefully towards the town centre. He enters the Sligo General Post Office on Wine Street. There, he purchases 8 82-cent stamps and a handful of airmail stickers. The postage value, investigators noted, precisely matched the cost of sending standard letters to mainland Europe at the time. 8 letters. To whom? Containing what final words, instructions, or perhaps calculated misdirections? Did they hold the key to his identity, or were they another layer of obfuscation? These potential final communications, if they were ever sent, have never surfaced. No recipient has ever come forward. The rest of Saturday, and indeed much of his stay, was marked by a peculiar pattern observed on the hotel's security cameras. Bergmann left the Sligo City Hotel repeatedly. Reports mention at least 13 separate excursions over his 3-day stay. Each time he ventured out, he carried a purple plastic shopping bag, the kind easily acquired anywhere. It appeared full, weighted. Each time he returned, often quite quickly, the purple bag was either visibly empty, folded neatly, or gone entirely. The inescapable conclusion drawn by investigators was that Bergmann was systematically disposing of his personal belongings, piece by painful piece. He seemed to favour public waste bins dotted around Sligo town. Crucially, while CCTV tracked his general movements through the streets, the actual moments of disposal seemed carefully managed. He appeared acutely aware of camera placements, perhaps utilising blind spots or the anonymity of crowds to discard items without the act itself being clearly recorded. What did he throw away? Clothes, papers, photographs, items that could tie him to a past, a family, a life? The contents of that purple bag, swallowed by the town's municipal waste collections before their significance was known, remain another frustrating void. His interactions were minimal. Hotel staff described him as quiet, polite even, but reserved. One cleaner attempting to service his room reportedly found him spooked, startled by the interruption, reinforcing the image of a man intensely focused on a private, clandestine mission. He was a smoker, frequently seen indulging outside the hotel. His clothing, noted later, offered subtle clues pointing towards Central Europe. A black leather jacket from C&A, a common retailer in Germany and Austria. Navy C&A chino trousers, size 50. A black leather Key West USA belt, though made in Italy. And distinctive black leather Finn comfort shoes, size 44. A brand manufactured in Germany. Small flags planted in the anonymous landscape he was cultivating. Sunday, June 14th, brought a change in activity. Around 11 a.m, Bergmann left the hotel and hailed another taxi. He asked the driver for a recommendation: a nice, quiet beach, somewhere suitable for swimming. The driver suggested Ross's Point, a picturesque peninsula about 8 to 10 kilometers northwest of Sligo town, known for its sandy stretches, golf links, and views of Benbulben Mountain. The taxi took him there. Bergmann got out, surveyed the scene for approximately 15 minutes, taking in the air, the water, the lay of the land, and then surprisingly got back into the same taxi and returned to Sligo. This wasn't a day trip, it was Reconnaissance. He was scouting his final destination. Yet the act of asking for a recommendation introduces a sliver of ambiguity. Was he genuinely unfamiliar with the area, picking his spot based on local advice? Or was this another deliberate interaction, creating a witness, a small breadcrumb pointing towards a seemingly spontaneous choice, masking a predetermined plan? Monday, June 15th, was the final day. Bergmann requested and was granted a late checkout from the Sligo City Hotel. At 1:06 p.m, he formally settled his bill, again likely in cash, though records might simply show prepayment, and handed back his room key. He left the hotel carrying his black shoulder bag, the now familiar purple plastic bag, and a different black luggage bag. The carry-on bag he had arrived with from Derry was gone, presumably another casualty of his disposal routine. Some accounts differ slightly, mentioning only 2 bags at this final stage, but the consensus is his original luggage was replaced. He didn't take a taxi this time. Instead, he walked towards the Sligo bus station, his route taking him via Quay Street and Wine Street. Along the way, he made a brief, strange stop at the Quayside shopping centre. CCTV captured him pausing awkwardly in the entrance doorway for several minutes, seemingly hesitant, or perhaps steeling himself before continuing on his way. This moment, frozen on grainy footage, offers a rare glimpse behind the meticulous facade, a flicker of human uncertainty or internal conflict beneath the controlled execution of his plan. At 1:38 p.m, he arrived at the Sligo bus station cafe. He ordered a cappuccino and a toasted ham and cheese sandwich. As he sat consuming this simple final meal, witnesses observed him taking pieces of paper from his pocket. He studied them intently, repeatedly glancing down. Then, methodically, he tore the papers in half and deposited the pieces into a nearby public bin. Were these final contacts, addresses, notes to himself, reminders of a life he was about to extinguish? Like the contents of the purple bag, these torn fragments were lost, presumably swept away before the Gardaí could retrieve them. By this point, his original black holdall was definitively gone. At 2:20 p.m, Peter Bergmann boarded the bus to Ross's Point. This time, it wasn't a reconnaissance mission. The afternoon and evening unfolded under the vast sky of the Atlantic coast. Over the next 8 hours, Bergmann became a transient figure on Ross's Point beach. Remarkably, given his apparent desire for anonymity, an estimated 16 to 18 different people reported seeing him. Witnesses described him as restless, anxious, pacing back and forth along the sand, sometimes near the water's edge. Despite his internal turmoil, he wasn't entirely withdrawn. He offered casual greetings, a nod or a wave to some passers-by, small, perplexing acts of connection from a man seemingly dedicated to disconnection. His luggage, the shoulder bag, the purple bag, the replacement luggage bag, was not seen with him on the beach during these hours. Where he left them, and what happened to them, is yet another unsolved piece. Did he secrete them somewhere? Were they washed away? Or did he dispose of them earlier? Perhaps this area, known locally to some by the evocative, though likely unofficial name Dead Man's Point, held his final secrets. The last confirmed sighting came late that night. At approximately 11:50 p.m, as high tide approached, a woman saw him walking near the ocean's edge, the waves lapping close by. One account suggests he might have been carrying a plastic bag at this time, perhaps the purple one reappearing for a final act. Then darkness enveloped Ross's Point and Peter Bergmann disappeared from view for the last time. Tuesday, June 16th, dawned bright and early. Around 6:45 a.m, some reports place it slightly later, near 8 a.m. Arthur Kinsella and his son Brian were on Ross's Point beach training for a triathlon. Near the water's edge, amidst the seaweed and damp sand, they made a grim discovery: the body of Peter Bergmann. He lay prone, washed partially ashore. The Gardaí were called immediately. At 8:10 a.m, Dr. Valerie McGowan arrived and pronounced the man dead at the scene. The state in which the body was found added another layer of peculiarity. He was partially clothed, wearing purple-striped Speedo-style swimming trunks. Pulled over these trunks were his underpants, and tucked into the underpants was a navy t-shirt. Nearby, his outer clothes were found: the black C&A leather jacket, the navy C&A chinos, dark socks, the Key West belt, and the black fin comfort shoes. Some items were folded neatly on rocks, others scattered slightly. The most significant detail: every single identifying label had been crudely, but effectively, cut from all items of clothing, including his undergarments and the t-shirt. It was the final act of erasure, ensuring even his garments offered no clue to origin or identity. His pockets, according to the most detailed investigative accounts, were completely empty. No wallet, no cash, conflicting slightly with initial summaries mentioning €140, perhaps found elsewhere, or an early inaccuracy. No keys, no identification whatsoever. Peter Bergmann had succeeded in becoming a blank slate. The subsequent post-mortem examination, conducted by state pathologist Dr. Clive Kilgallen, yielded crucial paradoxical information. Firstly, it ruled out foul play. Secondly, contrary to expectations given the location, there was no evidence of classical saltwater drowning. He hadn't inhaled significant amounts of water. The official cause of death was determined to be acute cardiac arrest. His heart had simply stopped. But the autopsy revealed why his heart might have stopped, and in doing so unveiled the likely tragic motive behind his elaborate charade. Peter Bergmann was a profoundly sick man. He was suffering from advanced metastatic prostate cancer, which had spread aggressively, causing malignant bone tumors. Some sources specify the spread reached his chest and lungs. This condition would undoubtedly have subjected him to considerable, perhaps constant, pain. Furthermore, he had significant underlying ischemic heart disease, with evidence of previous heart attacks. He was also missing a kidney, indicating major surgery at some point in his past. The most staggering finding, however, came from the toxicology report. Despite the advanced cancer, the bone tumors, the history of heart attacks, conditions screaming out for palliative care, there were no medications found in his system, not a trace of painkillers, chemotherapy drugs, heart medication, nothing. This wasn't negligence. It strongly suggested a conscious, deliberate choice to forego treatment, to endure the mounting pain without relief. The picture suddenly sharpened. A man facing a terminal, painful illness, choosing to end his life on his own terms, far from anyone who knew him. The desire for anonymity likely stemmed from a wish to spare family or loved ones the burden of his illness, the stigma of suicide, or perhaps simply a final, ultimate act of control over his narrative. His earlier query about a quiet beach for swimming, combined with the Speedos found on his body, indicated an intention to enter the water, perhaps to drown himself. The finding of cardiac arrest suggests his failing heart gave out before he could fully enact that plan, perhaps triggered by the shock of the cold Atlantic water or the exertion. His meticulous planning was ultimately superseded by his ravaged body. The Gardaí launched a comprehensive 5-month investigation. They confirmed the Vienna address was bogus. They painstakingly reviewed hours of CCTV, tracing Bergmann's ghostly path through Sligo, but finding no clear shot of him disposing of his crucial belongings. Fingerprints were taken and run through national databases and Interpol's international network. No matches. Missing persons reports across Europe were scoured. No one fitting his description had been reported lost. His dental records documented meticulously: fillings, bridging, root canals, crowns, a distinctive full gold tooth on the upper back right side, a small silver filling near the gum line on the lower left, were circulated via Interpol. This seemed like a concrete lead. Such specific work should be traceable, yet silence. Perhaps his records were old, undigitized, held by a retired or deceased dentist in some forgotten filing cabinet. Perhaps they originated in a country with less accessible records, or maybe, despite the detail, the work lacked a truly unique identifier without comparative X-rays. The failure to identify him via his teeth underscores the chilling thoroughness of his anonymity, or perhaps the limitations of international record keeping. Public appeals were made, including the difficult decision to release the morgue photograph of the man's face. Still, nothing. No one recognized the man with the German accent, the Finn comfort shoes, the secret sorrow. His DNA profile was extracted and stored, a silent digital witness waiting for a potential future match against a relative in a genealogical database, perhaps. His few remaining possessions, the label-less clothes found on the beach, were archived. On September 18, 2009, 3 months after his body was found, the man known only as Peter Bergmann was laid to rest. With his true identity still a mystery and no family stepping forward, he was buried in an unmarked grave in Sligo Cemetery. Reports suggest the funeral was sparsely attended, perhaps only 6 people present to witness the final interment of a man who had worked so hard to be forgotten. But he wasn't forgotten. The sheer peculiarity of the case, the methodical erasure, the untraceable identity, the poignant details of his illness endured without medication, captured the public imagination. Speculation inevitably arose, straying beyond the probable theory of planned suicide. Was he a spy erasing his past after a final mission? A gangster fleeing enemies? Someone involved in insurance fraud? More outlandish theories involving Nazi backgrounds or even extraterrestrial origins surfaced in online forums, testament to the vacuum created by the lack of facts. None of these hold any water against the stark medical evidence. The central questions remain stubbornly unanswered. Why Sligo? Why Ross's Point? Did this specific location hold some unknown significance, a past memory? Or was it chosen almost randomly for its rugged beauty and relative isolation? And why the extreme lengths to ensure anonymity, only to potentially send 8 letters beforehand? Who were they addressed to? Did they contain confessions, farewells, or perhaps were they a final, complex piece of misdirection? The purchase of those stamps remains a wrinkle in the narrative of complete self-obliteration. In 2013, the award-winning short documentary The Last Days of Peter Bergmann, directed by Kieran Cassidy, brought the case to wider international attention. Using the grainy CCTV footage and interviews, the film masterfully conveyed the haunting atmosphere surrounding the man's final days, further cementing his status as an enigma. The documentary, widely available online, continues to fuel discussion and amateur sleuthing. Organisations like Locate International have made fresh appeals in recent years, sometimes releasing enhanced images or previously unseen CCTV stills, hoping to jog a memory somewhere. The ultimate paradox of the Peter Bergmann case is that his very success in achieving anonymity ensured his remembrance. By meticulously wiping away his identity, he created a story, a documented mystery that fascinates and confounds. He sought to vanish without a ripple, but instead left behind a permanent question mark on the Sligo shore. He is the man who wasn't there, yet who refuses to leave. Somewhere, perhaps in Germany or Austria, someone might still wonder what became of a father, a brother, a friend who disappeared in the early summer of 2009. Someone might hold the key, an old letter with unfamiliar stamps, a faded photograph, a memory of distinctive gold dental work. Until then, Peter Bergmann remains Sligo's ghost, his silence echoing louder than any name ever could. The tide continues to ebb and flow at Ross's Point, guarding the secrets of the man who chose it as his final anonymous stage.